You've seen the stunning display pieces, the perfectly posed figures, and the envy-inducing collections. But what if I told you there's a secret, darker side to Hot Toys collecting that no one talks about? A hidden world of unexpected challenges, ethical dilemmas, and struggles that can turn a passion into a burden. We're going to discuss all of it here today. But before we get started, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell. So that way you're notified when content goes live here. That said, today we're going to shine a bright light on the dark side of Hot Toys collecting and see if we can overcome our demons. Thank you so much for joining me for another video today. And today we really need to talk about the dark side of Hot Toys collecting. Hot Toys collecting in general is a very fun and exciting hobby. It has a lot of pros to it, but there are also some cons that I don't think people recognize or, more importantly, talk about all that frequently. And I think the one I want to start with is the lure of the perfect collectible figure. There is an undeniable appeal to collectors who really want something that's hyper-realistic. These figures are becoming more and more realistic by the day. Hot Toys, InArt Collectibles, J&D, whichever company you want to highlight, all of them are producing really high quality representations of beloved characters from beloved franchises. What these Hot Toys collectible figures truly are emotionally driven purchases. These are figures that represent some sort of beloved or cherished memory to a collector. These Hot Toy collectible figures are essentially emotionally driven purchases. They are nostalgia oriented first and foremost. Usually a collector will purchase a Hot Toys figure because they're hyper realistic and they're beautiful representations of beloved characters and franchises that are held dear to many different collectors across the world. But there is that honeymoon stage, akin to a new relationship. This is a stage where a collector gets so excited to unbox and eventually pose and put the figure in their display case, and there's something very exciting about adding a new figure to your collection, particularly one that's really good and really important to you. But what can often happen over time is as that honeymoon phase starts to fade, you start to fall out of love with the figure. And more often than not, when you go to sell a Hot Toys collectible figure, you're probably going to end up losing money. And that can be problematic for people with a tight budget, like many of us. Hot Toys can also be somewhat of a gateway drug. Hot Toys collectibles can lead to artisan Hot Toys collectibles, which can lead to InArt figures, which can lead to J&D figures, which can lead to statues, or just more Hot Toys figures. One Hot Toy leads into 2, into 3, into 4, into 5, and eventually you have a whole display room that you never quite intended to have, and it's because you got carried away. You just can't have one potato chip, now can you? And this is always something that I want collectors to recognize. This can be an addictive hobby if you're not careful, and you can overspend on your budget, which I have done several times now, if you really get enticed by the shiniest, newest thing, and you want everything that has any semblance of meaning to you. So I think it's more important than ever to be as selective as possible because there's more good things than ever, which is a great problem to have. But there's also the financial abyss of it all. I mean, the rapid escalation of costs. You got pre-order deposits, which are generally 10 to 20% of the figure's overall cost, full payments if you need to pay in full or you're paying an invoice when that thing's ready to ship, or just the relentless chase for quote unquote grail figures or the definitive version, which you know I fall victim to. There's also secondary market terrors. Usually you can buy most Hot Toys for at retail price or below retail price if you're just patient enough, but there are certain versions, like artisan versions, where if you want them in a reasonable amount of time and you don't want to wait 6 years for the newest version, that you're gonna have to pay a intense markup. I paid $1,200 for my Darkside Anakin Skywalker, and while I certainly would not advise doing that, I am happy that I have the figure in my collection. Did I overpay? Absolutely. Am I proud of it? Absolutely not. But do I have a cool figure? For sure. You also have that somewhat hidden cost of display cases because when you first start collecting Hot Toys, you're not really thinking that far ahead. You're just buying figures that excite you and you're just along for the ride. But as you start to accumulate a significant collection, you're going to have to display them properly. And in order to display them properly, you're going to need something like Module Case display cases, and those are quite pricey and quite a lengthy wait. So at that point, yeah, you're heavily invested in this hobby very quickly. As you get more display cases, you're spending more money and then buying more figures, and it's a never-ending cycle. So it's a thing. There's also the feeling of the obsessive hunt or community pressures. Now, there's Hot Toys Artisan Live Drops. They happen every month or two probably, where it's an exclusive figure in a queue. You have to jump in, you have to join and try to buy the figure. And there is that community pressure to join in on the fun and buy a figure maybe that you otherwise wouldn't have. I do go live for all of these live drops, and I do think they're pretty fun. And I don't feel like I encourage people to spend outside their means, but every once in a while I'll get a comment about that saying like I'm kind of encouraging people to do things they don't want to do. I just feel like it's fun to be there and hang out. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But nonetheless, there is certainly community pressure. There's a lot of enabling in this hobby, so you're going to have to be responsible for your own finances and recognize when it's time to say no to something. There are so many cool things, and there will always be another cool thing. So eventually, the greatest skill you'll have as a Hot Toys collector is saying no. But there's also the dark side of the community itself, which I would argue is probably present in every community ever. There's people that gatekeep, there's people that shame, people that will pressure you to buy a figure because it's the perfect companion piece, or your collection looks incomplete without this specific figure. And I think that's where you need to resist temptation and make your own choices and be confident in the vision that you have for your display. But ultimately, most people in the community are pretty nice, but there certainly are a fair share of people out there that are pretty aggressive. And I think there's terms that we all play with, like grail and of course chase figure and definitive version, that I myself hype up quite a bit as well, because I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable to talk about these figures and discuss and compare them. But I don't want people to feel pressured to buy something because my opinion is that it's definitive, or someone else swayed you to do something that you don't want to do. So I really do encourage people to focus on what they want and have their own vision. But on the gatekeeping thing, I do see quite a bit of that. There are a lot of people now that believe that Hot Toys collectibles are absolute garbage. In-art collectibles is the king and they can do no wrong. And while I love in-art collectibles, I do believe in-art and Hot Toys both have their place in the collecting hobby. I do think in-art collectibles are slightly higher quality, but it's very close. And Hot Toys is doing an amazing job with the figures they're producing. Of course, there's misses every now and then, and their materials are somewhat sus here and there. But I do think the gatekeeping can be a bit much on both sides. Some people hate in-art, so it goes both ways. And if you're new here and you're wondering what in-art collectible figures are, I'll post the link to the video in the description below that I just made recently about in-art versus Hot Toys, and I think that will explain things. I think there's also a dark side of Hot Toys collecting in the comparison trap. I think this goes for almost anything with social media. Social media is a very powerful, incredible tool at connecting people across the world. But I do think as a consequence of that power, people are inevitably going to compare their lives to other people's lives, and their collections are no different. People are going to look at my collection and other massive collections from other creators, and they're going to say, my collection should look like that. And they're going to maybe overspend their budget and extend far beyond what they should be extending. And because of that, it's this constant comparison and trying to meet the community standard or the content creator standard that really you should just be running your own race. Social media can drive a sense of inadequacy, and that really is problematic because for Hot Toys collecting, it leads to a lot of FOMO purchases. Collectors will fear missing out on something and buy it solely because they think it will look good in their display, or other people will think that their display looks cool and they're cool because of it. And that, need to fit in, that validation need, can sometimes cause problems in the long term when you're overextending your budget and buying shit that you don't want. I think another dark side of collecting that we don't always touch on so much is the ethical side of it, because there are a lot of third-party companies out there that make unlicensed figures that try to compete with Hot Toys, that come in at a lot lower price typically, but sometimes they'll make characters or recast certain head sculpts directly from Hot Toys figures. And a lot of collectors will feel that ethical dilemma, like, do I support something that's technically illegal because I want it in my collection, or I just don't give a shit maybe, and I'm going to add it to my collection because I want that figure and that character represented. So it is a consideration. For me, I've never been hugely opposed to third-party figures. I do feel somewhat conflicted on them because they are technically stealing intellectual property, but I don't feel like there's that much harm being done. Maybe I'm wrong about that, maybe I'm ignorant, but I do feel like a lot of collectible companies can still make money off the collectibles they're making, and they're probably not going to make that version in that 1/6 scale anyway. So if people want something, and the company should be making money off the characters, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Is it a problem? I don't know. Maybe I'm selfish. I think whether collectors will talk about it, most won't because these are personal matters. It can have an impact on personal and family relationships. Hot Toys collecting is not a cheap hobby. It's rather expensive. And I do think there's a lot of spouses and, brothers and sisters and family members who will look at your collecting habit and say, wow, I can't believe you spent that much on a figure. I've interviewed many strangers who have expressed similar sentiments to me, and I never took it personally because I believe in my hobby and I believe they're worth the money they cost. But it can sometimes, I would speculate, cause somewhat of a strain on, personal relationships. I've seen people even comment it before. And as far as the mental health aspect of Hot Toys collecting, I feel like in general, Hot Toys collecting is a positive thing for one's mental health. It gives you a creative outlet, a passion to excel and do fun things in, but it also can be somewhat stressful sometimes. You have to keep up with the news. You have to see which versions are getting replaced by a 2.0 or 3.0 or an artisan version. So it can be quite a commitment to keep up with everything and follow, to make sure your collection stays as relevant and streamlined and modern as possible. I think the most important message that I want to stress from this video is that it's important to reclaim control. You need to be in control of your own Hot Toys collecting hobby, and you need to be able to take outside opinions and influences and push them to the side. Yes, they can sway your opinion one way or another, but you have to feel confident in your own decision-making skills and make personal decisions that are in the best interest of you and your collection and your family and nothing else. Setting clear boundaries and adhering to a budget, I feel, are extremely important. Yes, in 2025, I did go over my budget and I'm not proud of it, but in 2026, I'm committed to staying within my budget allotment because I think it's really important that I have the money dedicated to investments and other things outside of collecting that are really investing in my future. Hot Toys collecting is beautiful and I love it. It's my favorite hobby, but I do also want to build something for myself. It's really important to find fulfillment in the things that are meaningful to you. Hot Toys collecting can certainly be one of those things. It's my favorite hobby of all time, and I think there's so much fulfillment and meaning and purpose to find in it, and of course fun. It's just a really fun hobby. But I do think there are a lot of other great and fulfilling things in life that I want you to pursue as well. So find that healthy balance. I don't mean to get too philosophical on you, but I do think it's important to spread that message as often as I can. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you think I'm off base on the dark side of Hot Toys collecting. Ultimately, I think there are far more pros than there are cons, and I've talked about that in other videos on this channel. I can link them in the description below or comment if you let me know you're interested in that topic. But still, I think the dark side is worth addressing every now and then. If you like this video, make sure to like it down below, subscribe to the channel, and of course, click that notification bell so that way you are notified when content goes live here. Guys, again, let me know how your collecting is going and let me know whether you feel some of these, dark side elements of collecting every so often. This is dark side Hot Toys, I guess you could say. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. See you later. Bye.